That's one of those like design choices where we know it's super tricky because we know that like someone who isn't paying close attention, they'll play like this and just kind of spam an ability. And if you do that with Switch, oh man, it's really not good for you. So we hope you pay attention to the intricate information provided there in the what we called the elbow lines, the kind of where it says cheerleader 3.0 and protected and so on. Though we clean this up.
Yeah, he's
cheerleader, you're through. You can't do nothing.
He just has the thing where he protects himself at level 3, so he switched. So you made him on your side.
Yeah, now I made him on my side, which was not useful. All right, now we'll.
There we go.
Surprise. Boom. All right.
We talked earlier about some of the hope behind the turn function in the game and the difference between planning and execution. And one of the things that can actually make your plan like not work out in this game is the motion of stuff, which is, if you've ever planned an intricate turn in Transistor and then had the unit move when you actually try to execute it, that was actually, something by design where the motion of characters through the world, because you're knocking them back and stuff, can actually cause them to be bounced into your shot or bounced out of your shot. And the difference between what was happening in real time and what was happening in turn mode is all meant to be part of the like whole picture of what it felt like to plan and hope for the best in the execution. And sometimes it turned out better than you wanted, and sometimes it turned out worse.
I'm doing some weird like going all in on
I think we
need
need a new passive. I feel like we should switch out our high with something.
Although that's been working pretty well.
Yeah.
Turn move, turn. Do I? We're pretty caught up on our
inspects.
Yeah, I think we're pretty caught up on.
I think we just need flood back, and we can do some more stuff.
Yeah, and more turn planning should be cool.
Question from the Dear Lord: is the stream tomorrow also starting at 9 a.m. Pacific time? Our plan is to start around 9 a.m. Hopefully right at 9, but it'll be shortly after if we're not able to start right then. So that's the plan for tomorrow's Pyre stream.
Yeah, it's going to be us once more, right? Mm-hmm. We're not quite a Pyre's a longer game, so we'll see how long we go.
Yeah, I don't know how far we'll get. We'll do what we can tomorrow. Who's hosting? It'll be me and Greg again. Yeah. So you'll be able to catch us again. Lives on Rice is asking about the process of making the function stuff, which we talked about a bit, but also has another question about it, which is, are you trying to reward creatively so it doesn't feel like there's a best setup? Everything's viable, making quite enjoyable to try new combinations.
It's a pretty good way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't want there to be sort of like this obvious best setup, but we're actually quite okay with some combinations being more effective with certain playstyles than others. So, if you are like someone who only wants to fight in turn, like it's totally fine for us if you never go and come up with a good use of Jaunt as an upgrade on a power. That's like all kind of intentional.
Yeah, there was like some soul searching on our part around that, but yeah, for sure we like part of it being open-ended or like feeling open-ended, I should say, and like that you're discovering the limits of what this thing can do is that sense of like with experimentation, it seems important for some outcomes to be less optimal than others.
Yeah.
So that you can appreciate when you find like a really good outcome. And the finding the bad, like the ineffective outcomes is like, it's not unfun in its own right just because it doesn't work well.
Yeah.
It can be entertaining. We like to have game experiences where players kind of can tailor the challenge for their own sake and, have a weird playthrough where, I'm just going to help the entire, use the summon, for every encounter or something like that. Like that's not a strictly intended player path, but it's cool that the game can support it. And that's why having different power levels of the function combinations was totally fine for us. As long as as long as all of the functions individually were good, right? That was important to us. We didn't want any functions where it's like, oh, definitely don't want this one, because you end up over time you do accumulate all of them, and you should sort of value what each one of them can do. But
Yeah.
Having your favorites is all good.
Yeah, I think the part that I think was intended to be, balance is an interesting thing, especially for a single player game.
Yeah,
right.
If you're making different considerations.
Yeah, if you're making a multiplayer game, then I'm sure if you're like balancing Hearthstone or something, if you had a card with a usage rate that was effectively 0, you might feel like, okay, well that isn't exactly the outcome I wanted. But like we were saying earlier, it's not that we want 0 use cases where nobody uses it, but we're okay with stuff that people use situationally or not that much, because in a single player game it's more about are people enjoying, do they have their favorites, do they have an ability to tailor their play style, are they being expressive, do they feel like their choices like matter, and in some ways like perfect balance is not necessarily completely in line with choices mattering, because then you could just basically pick anything.
Yeah, then they're all kind of the same, and
Yeah.
you're going to be similarly effective no matter what you choose. And it basically sort of makes everything more sort of vanilla in a way. Yeah, and whereas here, you have some players that are like, oh my god, Void and Cull, like if you triple stack Void and do this other stuff, they discover these really powerful combinations.
Yeah, ways to like one-shot the highest level enemies as long as they combine their functions in a certain way and stuff like that. I think that stuff is just awesome.
And I think some of those, like the most powerful combinations, I think are somewhat more off the beaten path. Like Void is a really powerful ability, but one that has no like direct effect, so that makes it like harder to use. It's just it being more indirect than something like Breach makes it, the reward is sort of built into it, that you took the time to experiment with Void and you discovered that turns out making an enemy 325% or whatever more vulnerable to damage is pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I think there's also I would say the most balanced thing we did want is all the functions as an active. It was pretty important to us that the actives be appropriately scaled to the mem cost and be appropriately effective. So like the mem cost relationship to how powerful a function is was much more important to get right than like, is load significantly better than, Cull is significantly better than purge or something like that. And so we need to make sure that as an active, there is like a much more, I think, much greater attention to the balance of those things, because the base power is how is where everything is multiplied out from when there is 1 or 2 upgrades on it. So certainly that was a big part of it, and there were parts in development. I'm sure this happens in games like Hearthstone also, where it's like, oh my God, we're gonna change Void and make it go from 2 points to 3 points of mem in cost or whatever, and that being like a pretty big deal to the overall game balance, because suddenly different. You have a limit on the number of functions you can take by mem and memory, and so that ends up changing stuff. Here we are.
This is our like our Far Cry esque encounter, at least from my point of view. We like the idea, occasionally having these encounters where you choose the point of, you can sort of go into this encounter from whichever angle these enemies aren't aware of you, so we can just. It's going to be a tough fight, but we can engage them on our terms and find like the right angle of attack. With each, Bastion was similar in the respect that it's like it's a series of unique. We build each like combat encounter uniquely, and even though as a player, when you experience a game like this, I'm sure there are times when the battles kind of flow from one to a next, and it's not like they're you're encountering some of the same types of foes, but from our point of view in designing the encounters, we want each of them to have a distinct feel. We don't want any 2 encounters in the game to be just like, oh, we just did exactly this thing earlier, so we're always thinking of ways to sort of do to make the most out of the enemy, like in this case, these different process creatures and different combinations. We found different ways to get them to interact with each other, and whether they ambush you or whether you get to get the first drop on them, all of it made for interesting stuff for us. Oh, and this is where the jerk has his sort of tractor beam now, which is pretty nasty.
Yeah, he can pull you in like the get function almost, except for on him.
Oh, he missed. And I have my copy, so that creating a diversion for
diversion
them.
for when.
Pretty
when you
handy.
bug out.
Yeah, because the jerk is at level 3.0 now, and he can absorb you in and basically do that and have really terrible things happen to you. But I was hoping he was going to do that to my copy. Alas. Whoa! Oh, and I got pulled out of turn. That too. So these here. This is from.
Oh, that's from the Clucker's distortion fields. Yeah.
Yeah, the Clucker's distortion field. That's right. Every time they're like bombs, basically.
This is a fun mechanic for us to design because so far you've always been safe in turn mode, and so we really wanted to have something that would basically knock you out if you stepped on it.
Yeah.
We call these internally disruption zones. I forget what we ended up calling them. The upgrade on the Clucker himself.
Well, it had the desired effect on me, at least, having forgotten that we had that moment. That was pretty. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, you get so comfy that turn is gonna work for you in a certain way that having an enemy that can basically force you to end your turn, makes you. If you don't already hate your Clucker friends, now they're truly dastardly.
Yeah, and part of this stuff too is
oh man,
one of the tuning things is that changed a lot over the course of development is when do things level up? When do aspects of the process get their next version? What are those abilities? Yeah, so you can't even go into turn
you can't
mode.
even go in. That's right.
And so for those kinds of things, we just needed you just need to feel it out. Like one of the hardest things to account for in any game, but especially a game I think that has any strategic ambitions, which this game did, is how much does the player understand or know? Because you can always try and balance for the player power, but it's really hard to balance for player knowledge. How well are they using turn at this point? How many new concepts can we introduce? And in Bracket Towers, we feel like you're deep enough that we can introduce 5 new concepts, and we do. It's now the jerk pulls you in. Now the Clucker has these disruption fields. Now the snapshot kind of hides information from you about the battlefield. Now the cheerleader, who has always been able to just be an open target for you, sometimes shields themselves, and these kinds of things in combination end up changing the feel.
Yeah, we also really the idea that the enemies are leveling up alongside you. That was a fun. Not only was that an interesting way for us to develop the enemies from a gameplay standpoint, there I think the fiction implication there was cool too. It's almost like the Borg or something, adapting over time and gaining experience. As you deal with them, they get they optimize for their weaknesses. They offset their weaknesses that you were able to exploit earlier.
Draka asks, actually, one of you turned me on to, I think Greg, that I loved was, a game that you turned me on to that I loved was Valkyria Chronicles.
Oh, yeah?
Wondering if that partially informed the turn idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
we must have. I mean, I talk about Valkyria, two or three times a week.
Yeah, we all played. I mean, we all played Valkyria here on the design team and liked that game a lot. So I think it was probably more like a subconscious influence than an overt one. Probably on things the obvious thing would be something like the way the energy bar works for a turn, where it in Valkyria it encompasses both your attacks and your movement resource. No, in Valkyria actually it's just your movement resource.
Yeah, it is discrete.
It's separated. Right. You get a certain number of attacks and then the movement resource. So so it's a little bit different there, but for us putting everything in the same bar was sort of important because just for game feel and balance and all this kind of stuff too. It makes it a little bit mushier than if you have the resources be discrete, but that mushiness is part of the strategic planning.
Yeah, Valkyria Chronicles is a great game though.
Yes.
Also available on Steam.
Nikki says, thank you, Amir and Greg, for the wonderful stream again. Hoping to join you tomorrow as well. Thank you very much. We're hoping to have you there when we'll be talking about Pyre tomorrow, starting around 9 a.m. Pacific time, going through our third and biggest game.
Oh, no. Get away.
Which one is this?
This is just kind of the
preparation. You just have to.
I have to. I'm
get through
getting
everywhere.
new functions each time, but
Got it.
I should know to deal with the cheerleaders by now. It's foolish. There we go.
I
Yeah.
feel like Messier asks, I feel like Supergiant games subvert typical video game expectations a lot. You guys go in with the intention of having those moments.
Yeah.
yeah.
The short answer is yes. It's fun. You know, we're like avid game players ourselves, and part of the fun of it is we love. I think both narratively and gameplay wise, like we really appreciate genre. So there's game genres like the action RPG, and then there's fiction genres like cyberpunk, and they. Conventions within those genres exist with good reason. They're like forms that have withstood, you know, a great deal of. They're forms that have like sort of existed for a long time because they connect with people, and sometimes genre gets like a bad name of like, oh, it's a typical like romantic comedy or something like that, but people kind of misassociate the quality of the thing with the genre. Like there can be an infinite number of amazing works within a genre. Like there can be an infinite number of amazing first-person shooters, or action RPGs or romantic comedies or what have you. And sometimes when people express like, oh, I'm sick of shooters or something like that, it's because they haven't played one that they enjoy. But it's not like the genre's fault. So part of working with genre is like. Finding ways to do unconventional things within it. And part of that requires sort of literacy with the genre, being aware of what are the tricks of the trade and is there something that you could add to it that hasn't been done before. And that's tough to do, I guess. But, you know, you think about it, you talk through it with your colleagues, and hopefully you get excited about certain ideas and you try them and test them on other people. And some stuff starts to connect. You start to see evidence that bits of it are connecting with people, and that's some of the stuff you go with. You know, like I said, both kind of mechanically and story-wise. I think we look for those things for sure.
Yeah, I think also the thing with subversion is like, you know, it's deviant. So sometimes you try it, it doesn't land. So
Yeah.
and sometimes you do, and you get really excited about it. So whenever you see those things in our game, there's probably like at least maybe one other thing that we also tried that wasn't 100% exactly what we want. Because those conventions often exist for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, speaking of, we're actually about to, if we get out of the sandbox here and go back to the
which maybe
the story
we do that after this.
we one of the biggest moments of subversion of expectations is about to occur in this game, and it's one that I saw many responses to it, we should say, and I'm referring, again, assuming many of you have played through this game before, I'm referring to the scene on the roof where you discover Grant and Asher, which, you know, so much about the camerata in this game was about subverting setting up certain expectations and then subverting them, and when you find Grant is maybe one of the ultimate versions of that. And when you can subvert expectations, you can violate expectations. Those things are all sort of tricky to do as like a quote unquote creator. You have to be this is just my own point of view, but you respect your audience's intelligence and their taste, and but sometimes you have to go out on a limb with stuff too, and you don't quite know how it's gonna land, right? With so many aspects of this story and this world, right? We were always wondering how people were gonna take it. So yeah, playing this game now after all these years, you know, with thousands of people seemingly who probably you wouldn't be here if you didn't have some fondness for this game. So thank you. Yeah, we were very grateful that this game ended up connecting with people, because even at the time that we released it, that's the part that's wild to me, actually, because with Bastion, you guys talked about yesterday how it took us a long time to begin to realize just the degree of Bastion's success. It was not obvious. It wasn't like some grand slam home run that we immediately knew. We kind of it just kind of kept going, which was really unexpected because it's a single player game that you could sort of complete in a reasonable amount of time. The conventional wisdom was not that a game like Bastion would continue to sort of resonate with players for a long time. And similarly with Transistor, when it first came out, I don't know what we were expecting, but it wasn't clear that we had this question in the back of our minds. It's like, well, was this enough, right? Yeah. Did it live up?
I mean, that gets back to something that we talked about a little bit yesterday when we were talking about Bastion, which is, well, first of all, I'd like to say Prang, who says, hey, Supergiant Games, just want to pop in and say hi, thanks, respect for a trio of great games and soundtracks so far. You guys are batting 3 for 3. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, it means a lot to us that longtime fans of our games find something to love in each of them. But I think one of the things that, we didn't really talk about too much as a team, but we just felt was the pressure on Transistor to meet or exceed Bastion, which that pressure just couldn't be there for us when making Bastion itself.
Yes.
Making Bastion itself, it's like making a game at all was the goal, and then having it be really, really good was the hope, and that it would be well received. But once it's out there in the world and the audience has a chance with it, you don't really, your agency is sort of done at that point, and you can only just really hope that people find something in it. With Transistor, it's really different because we had a game where by the time we had really started working on it, we were starting to hear things from people like, Bastion was one of the better games they played that year, or we started winning awards for that game. We started hearing people say this, one of the more flattering things I remember from the time is, you inspired my faith in what games can be and this kind of stuff. And that wasn't the goal, but that is an amazing thing to hear. And it's so awesome to have made something that affected people in that way. But when the net result on your psychology can be a lot of internal pressure around God, I hope this thing can live up to what the expectations are on us now after what we've done with our first game.
And folks place so much faith in us, right? Also, you don't want to you get this thing. You want to live up to the faith that the way we don't always believe in ourselves the way that some folks out there believe in us, and it really I cannot overstate just how much it matters, because it's what game development has its ups and downs, and sometimes when you're in one of the downturns and just sort of figuring out if you can even sort of live up to your past self again or whatever, when the faith that you folks place in us makes a tremendous difference in helping us to sort of find our footing again and keep going and get back on track with things. But then to talk more specifically about that Bastion Transistor comparison, the other side of it that I don't think we talked about, but maybe we thought about from time to time is not only is there the inherent pressure of, can we make something worth a damn again?
Yeah.
We were also, in making the choice to make this game as opposed to Bastion 2 or whatever, from a opportunity cost standpoint, we were denying people Bastion 2, right? We have made the choice. We knew that people love Bastion. In theory, they would love for us to whatever go back to that world. It would have been an obvious choice and not necessarily a bad one for us to just go make more Bastion. But we chose to make this, and it's oh man, is this going to be?
Yeah.
I remember expecting a portion of players to be pretty angry with us when we announced this game.
Yeah.
Just because this wasn't Bastion 2.
Yeah.
And thankfully I didn't see that at all. But I was so sure it was going to happen because people liked that game a lot, and I can understand how. So again, we really appreciate that folks out there have it really is a show of faith in us that there is a willingness among our player base to see us branch out and do things that are somewhat afield of games we've made in the past, and that's kind of our journey together, I suppose, with,
Yep.
with our player base to see we so much of this for us has been about like self-discovery as well. We didn't know
No.
that we were capable of any of this.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's you
This
know.
is going on for a while, by the way. This is a
Yeah,
tough
it is. This is a
challenge.
tough challenge and tough fight.
I think this is toward the end.
We don't we don't have a like it would have been really hard to imagine Bastion. Maybe if you knew our personalities, maybe you could have guessed a game like that might exist. But Transistor and Pyre, I think, were even, and we'll talk about that with Pyre tomorrow, were even, I think, harder games to imagine us doing
Yeah.
without having done the game before it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it was just like, it was a sort of a feel thing a little bit. Yeah, so that tremendous pressure meant that I think led to a version of what Greg is describing, which is like, it took us a while to realize people really, really like this game.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
It's kind of because you never know at the time.
Yeah.
You just don't like they're I'm sure you folks out there can think of examples of games that like when they come out, they're like hailed as like the best game experiences ever or whatever. You see the reviews, they're off the charts. Everyone buys them and whatever. And then like this happens across media. It's actually sort of an unfortunate phenomenon. The kind of the bigger something is in its initial splash, often there's like a backlash after that because the phenomenon is it draws in even more like excited people to experience this game, but now that group of people is going in, having been pretty hyped. They're like, those people are like, dude, whatever, it's not that great or something like that. You never really know how it's going to shake out over time, even when everybody seems to love something at its point of origin. So it takes some years to see is like, what's the hindsight on this? How did this actually turn out once people have calmed down a little bit? So yeah, boy, I thank my lucky stars that people still like this game. I'm gonna try Get is a really interesting
especially
one.
Get on Orb on the Blood can be pretty devastating.
Let's go with Mem. We have enough upgrade slots.
Yeah, I mean the
Overload more functions at once. That's brutal.
yeah, I think the thing I remember
This is fine.
giving the advice I remember giving some of our friends who had really strong first games after the experience of Transistor was like just get your second game.
Get it out there.
Yeah, get it out there
Yeah.
because the circumstances under which you make your third game can feel really, really different. It comes back to an analogy I made yesterday, which is like now that we have 3 games, I feel like I have like a what's the term? Almost healthier implies that there's an unhealthy way to think. It's more like I have just a different way of viewing reactions to our games. Because sometimes people come up to us and say stuff like, hey, I really liked game A or C or B, but not one of the other ones. And they expect that to sort of offend us, but it really doesn't. It's like it's totally okay if one of our games was the one you liked more.
This the combo?
Yeah, that's the combo
Okay.
I really like because it pulls guys in while they are.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like totally acceptable if there are game experiences you liked more in our thing. In the same way, like I have favorite bands, and with every favorite band I have a favorite album. I just like do. I don't know that it was possible for me to like love every album equally.
Yeah. Like how could they not? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're never. We like really enjoy hearing about those kind of perspectives. The other thing is our games find people at different times in their lives,
Yes.
and I was just telling. Oh man,
scene.
this scene.
This is one of my favorite looking
yeah.
scenes in any of our games, and I can say that because I did not work on any aspect of this. Yeah.
This is our kind of Blade Runner, our most
yeah.
explicitly Blade Runner homage in terms of the color palette and everything. And this cool part where you kind of break through the clouds and slam to a stop.
Yeah, I also like the thing he's saying there about skipping town. It kind of harkens to the.
Yeah.
I like the way the game opens with you feel like almost like you might have committed some sort of crime.
Yeah.
And he's kind of back to that way of thinking and talking.
We
again.
talked about the almost like a Bonnie and Clyde,
Yeah.
like let's get out of here. This kind of like back to the film noir type of connection. And this is where we should come back. I started saying another thing that was We could come back to that. This is our. I was referring a few minutes before about subverting expectations. So here we are very. We are perhaps cruelly setting you up to expect the next exciting boss fight. Because after Sybil, after the spine, and here comes Grant in a mech suit or whatever. But no.
Yeah. This is a.
And yeah, man, this scene. This is also like Jen.
Yeah, she
The
did
music and everything.
The other thing we do as part of the misdirection, right before this, is we put the access point.
Yeah,
To make you
exactly.
think that you're getting
Load
all,
up. And
yeah, you're getting all ready for a boss fight.
the only thing that made me there were definitely some players who were like they must have cut. They must have had a big boss fight and they cut it and they just made him.
Oh no!
They just made him dead. There was never. This was always the plan. In case you were wondering, this was always the plan. Absolutely.
If you didn't like this idea, you wouldn't have liked this idea the
Yes.
whole time. Yeah.
Oh, and here is Asher Kendrill's, or I suppose the Kendrill's plural cat in the foreground.
Yeah.
People wonder what became of the cat. There he is. This leads to not a secret area, but yeah, I don't want to laugh too much over alive, false. Yes.
Yeah.
They were close. Grant went first.
Some Boolean humor.
Yeah. And I like their chalkboard. Trying to understand.
They're trying to
what's
lay out
going
the transistor.
on.
It's also like a fun. It's like a fun aspect of this world, the vintageness of it.
Yeah. That they have chalkboards.
They have chalkboards.
They don't have like Minority Report swipey interfaces. This is another Chris Sapphire performance. This is not a happy scene. This connects to the ending. Is meant to foreshadow aspects of the ending. And you could quit early. You could say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to listen to you anymore, Asher. But hopefully you don't. So yeah, Asher and Grant were close. Not necessarily what you would have expected when you first saw them looking all cool, throwing the transistor at you with not great aim. See in the country. I'm not sure. We may have missed previous "See You in the Country" reference. There are, of course, plenty of country references in the function inspect descriptions, but this may be the first explicit "See You in the Country" statement from Red.
What are you gonna do now?
Charitable. I think the time of this time of death does accumulate. If you wait here a minute, it will go up by a minute. Small bits of trivia. Yeah, learning more about. We wanted this kind of like almost crime scene, and we have these different points of inspection here. It's like finding a crime scene, right, and having this almost like forensic, piecing this scene together. But I love how the scene came together. Actually, if I look at it now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey there, remember me? Guy you killed the other day?
So he has his payback.
Let me be the first to welcome you to your new home.
Yeah, tough guy talk.
Fake.
You fake.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that line. You fake. We asked ourselves what would be one of the most insulting things you could say to someone in the world of CloudBank, because there isn't like profanity the way we know it, and the idea that someone was fake resonated with us as something, it's not a word. It's pretty hurtful even in day-to-day life, but in the world of CloudBank, that's like one of the nastiest things you could say to somebody, I suppose.
A. Galvin is asking, where can they find your impression of Arcanum? And I think you had
My impression?
Yeah, I think it's a reference from earlier. You had a review, right?
Yeah, I reviewed it for GameSpot years and years ago.
Yeah. So if you have a question about
That's probably still up.
Yeah, it might still be there somewhere on ye old internet. Mastodon, who asked us this yesterday, but is asking, did Alfred Bester's "Stars Are My Destination" was it an inspiration for Transistor?
Yeah, through some. That's a great So the "Stars My Destination" is like a prototypical cyberpunk novel. It kind of predates the more conventional aspects of cyberpunk, but it's if you enjoyed Transistor, I certainly recommend it. And there's a function called Jaunt in obviously in Transistor that references the Stars My Destination somewhat explicitly because part of the fiction of the world of the Stars My Destination is that people are capable of something called jaunting, which is like short or medium range teleportation, much like in this game.
First right to left.
Yeah, we're going right to left.
Motion scene.
We had to debate it right because we're like we had to
Yeah.
flip it because we're like
Yeah.
well we're actually going back to an earlier area. It makes sense for it to go the other way.
Yep.
So now we're like eliminating these characters have been eliminated and only Royce is left.
We
the
have
mysterious Royce that we don't know anything about at this point unless we've inspected his.
Um,
And you see other spines of the world, I think, in this sequence. Maybe. Where are they? I think they're around. But yeah, the town is shot.
Yeah,
at this
it's not
point,
a
it's
good
clear.
scene right now
No
for-
point past a point of no return. And now it's just can Red alone escape from this seemingly? But of course, as you find out at the end, she may have other ideas.
So 2 questions that I missed from earlier. Wall of Illusion. Why can't I pet the cat? Head of the Church of Michael. Important question. Does the cat have a name? So I think
Yeah.
why you can't pet the cat is really says more about the nature of cats.
Yes, of
Than the
course. It
nature
would
of
be
the
unrealistic if you could pet the cat.
Yeah. So I think that one may answer itself, but the cat having a name, I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can
The cat,
say.
the cat, of course, must have a name.
Yeah.
But it's not revealed at any point in this video game. The cat, much like the name of the voice you hear coming from the Transistor, that's one where it is truly yours as a as you may democratically decide upon the name of Asher's cat and have that become the canon in
Yeah.
the spirit of.
There you go. That's the thing we wish we had done.
Yeah.
You found it, for sure. There's also the question of, is there kind of, it's from Vente Toile, is there a reading list of everybody's influences on the game?
Nope.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting aspect of
Yeah.
working here is, we've referred to this before, but it's like we don't have necessarily like a shared set of influences coming into a lot of these projects. We try to develop a shared set of references when we're looking at stuff together, but that's really different than influences, right?
Yeah, that tends to be more like almost like on the mechanics and like
Yeah.
game convention
Yeah.
side of like but yeah, when it comes to like more kind of, I guess, like artistic references or like media references, those tend to be quite personal, to the point where we've grown comfortable sort of not even sharing them amongst each other because we just don't experience them the same way and have to, like, you've probably had experiences before where, think of like your favorite band, for example, and you may have had moments, or at least I've experienced this many times, where you have your favorite music and you play it for you want to share it with someone. You play it for your significant other, you loan it to a friend or something like that. And even as you play it for them, you like feel like, even as it's playing back, you're like, ugh, this is weird. I know this isn't connecting with them the way I feel about it, because it's unique to you, and you don't have to. You just don't have to share it. It can be yours, and I think that's how we feel about some of these personal influences, where it doesn't matter that our colleagues all share them the same way that we do, as long as they have their own that matter to them and that can inform their work, and that our games are big enough to where they can include. There's room for all of that really in them, and we do. It's important to us, I think, that everyone on the team working on our games can put something of themselves that feels personal and matters to them, that they can put in that kind of work, because that's going to lead to the best. That's going to be a game that you're inspired to work on, and we think that that'll ultimately lead to the best possible game that we can make if it feels like it's coming from the heart for you, right?
Yep.
So you don't have to share what's what's in your heart all the time. Certainly this game is quite about that.
Yeah.
These characters don't wear their hearts on their sleeves all the time, but you start to figure out what really, really matters to them over the course of the game. I don't know. Maybe there's something there about how we made it. This is so we're back to this was the empty set stage where we first faced Sybil, so we wanted to have a scene where again, you're seeing the processed city over the course of the game, but now it's an area that you've retraced and like you're seeing this just sort of spreading uncontrollably at this point. The Clucker scene.
So a bunch of people might just be joining us.
Yeah.
We are Amir and Greg. We are two of the developers at Supergiant Games, and we are deep in to playing our second game, which is Transistor. We're probably rounding into the third and climactic act where you get a lot of answers to what's being happening to the stunning futuristic city and what will the fate of Red and the voice in the Transistor be. Oh, this is an Easter egg. Someone actually asked about Easter eggs earlier, which is like what happens if you sing for the Cluckers, you get them to perform.
Yep. Roughly in tempo.
Yeah. Have we ever talked about how I feel like the Cluckers could never really get on those chairs?
It's okay. They're in front of the chairs.
No, I mean they're doing what they think they should be doing.
Yeah, they're doing what they think they should be doing. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a little bit of deep lore TM right there.
Yep.
So what would other people do in this situation? We even have these guys up top. This is us playing with perspective. We've talked about this a bit before. This is an entirely 2D game, so these are just tricks. Our dirty tricks to give an impression of depth, and they kind of run away. But in our tool set, those are just like giant scaled up cluckers that appear objects, appear closer. And this is an interesting terminal of the presumptive death of Red among the casualties of the process. So the experience of getting to read your own obituary as the Transistor is certainly we had an impression going in that it would be go to some darker places than Bastion, and the Grant and Asher scene just before this this is kind of going to places that we chose not to go with Bastion.
Yeah, and this is where you start to really get a sense that like Red, who in some ways is this impenetrable character because you only experience her through her own voice through those terminals, may start to be thinking about her own decisions and her own plan. Yeah.
And it's also like a point in the story where you may be getting the impression that they're like this story may not have a happy ending.
Yeah.
And we to put a sort of finer point on it.
Yeah.
And of course we play with that too. We have a Discord, by the way. We haven't heavily promoted it, but we have an official Discord. But I was talking to folks in our Discord about how our games all have a sense of bittersweetness to them in varying proportions. But we bittersweetness, I think, is what I think to us can make for stories that feel more true to life. You have to. We never. Oh man, those guys.
Yeah, the Creep 3.0s you cannot mess around.
I should be using Crash, so or I don't have Void yet, but these guys are. I need to be doing something different to amplify my damage against these guys.
Yeah.
Ow.
It's an interesting small factoid too, is because Red.
Oh
God.
Not good.
Yeah, because Red herself doesn't necessarily level up. The Transistor levels up, and your access improves, and whatever else. Unless you take one of the passives that gives you more health, you don't get more survivable. Really
not good. We've not
totally
been wiped out.
We've had a lot of functions die. but we have not been wiped out completely.
Oh, this should be good. There we go. But
You have nothing in real time.
the nice thing is that they
He
do
blasted-
blow,
yeah, he
they blow up
blasted
the
his
shield
own
for
cell.
you, hopefully. So okay, that was a close one. We're playing with limiters on and stuff, so this is
Yeah, we
the
have four
challenge is-
limiters on, so it means that there's a lot of things happening, like increased amplified damage.
Somebody blow it up.
The cells
Thank
have.
you.
Yep.
Oh, disrupted again. Yeah, I said before that the difficulty peaked at rooftops. This is
Yeah, I actually think
pretty serious fight.
I think this one is hard.
Because of limiters and stuff.
I think it's the limiters are adding a lot here. I think you're actually experiencing one of those transistory moments too, which is sometimes you go into fights and your loadout isn't like super well equipped for the thing you're up against.
We've been mixing it up and
Yeah.
like semi-randomly almost.
Yeah.
Oh god, not good. So
there's one more.
To play this game super efficiently, it's nice. It can be helpful to kind of really master a particular loadout, but we've been experimenting a bit more, which adds to the challenge, adds to some of the fun of it as well.
Some people are checking in who said they play the game on PS4. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We have like actually today, right? We had Bastion go on sale for the limited run version of that.
Yeah. Our first physical box copy of one of our games.
Yeah.
Bastion for PlayStation 4 and PS Vita. Who
Yeah.
would have thought?
Yeah,
We'd have
Vita.
not us.
Yeah.
That we would have a physical print version of
A Vita game. but
Bastion.
it's happening.
Bastion for the Vita in 2018.
Yep.
Crash is still knocked out.
There's a
we made the cool instruction manual for it and stuff like that, which is good.
Mastodon who was asking earlier about Alfred Bester's novels is also asking if Pyre was a reference for Bester's romance, because in that book there is a matter named Pyre.
That is not
A direct reference, right?
Yeah. That is not in like a conscious right.
Yeah.
I say I stammer around it because I do believe in the power of like kind of subconscious references, stuff that you may not be super aware of that may still have affected you more than you realize, but that's not one that I can say we were actively thinking about.
Yeah. I think, when we get to Pyre 2, Pyre is a game whose naming, I guess we experimented with a bit more than our previous two titles, but who
Pyre?
knows? Didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We were pretty when we found the name Pyre totally felt right. I think that one bubbled to the.
Oh yeah.
top of the
Okay,
list
never
pretty
mind.
quick.
I'm thinking about something else. So we have just returned to stage, and there is one more.
Yeah, we're
Actually,
getting-
two more places to return to. Right, we have to go back
Yeah.
through Goldwalk and then back through. What did we call the first? It's a
Return to Goldwalk.
Return to.
Yeah.
No, I know the internal name of Return to Welcome. I just remember.
Oh, the base. Yeah, like the Baseline District.
Baseline District. Yeah, that's right. Mark My Words says, as a game development student, all your games have been more than inspiring to me. Thank you for all you guys do. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
One thing that was really fun in this game from Chewy says that I did was play with all the limbers on and never using turn. Felt like a different game. That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I appreciate that you did that.
It's tough to do.
It's tough to do, and I had always hoped that people could find the right loadout to do that. I know it's completely possible to, because I myself have tried to beat the game using almost entirely real-time combat, except for obviously in the couple places where you have to use turn.
Yeah.
But I have not really tried to do it seriously with a lot of the limiters on, and it's cool to know that you were able to find a way. And that's part of why this game took a long time to figure out and to build for us, is that we were making a game that supported essentially two different combat styles, and wanting them
had
to
be like balanced.
yeah, balanced and honestly, I think the way the pro Transistor player plays, they kind of do a combination of the two, because they realize they need to sometimes pop cell shields in real time, and then flip into turn to eliminate one of the key enemies and this kind of stuff, which we have been doing less of because we are not pros. We simply worked on this game, and it's been a while since we ourselves have played it.
But it's really interesting. It is. I think we did. Part of it for us is like you work on something like this for a number of years. You want it to be interesting for you as a developer.
Yeah.
And it was cool to discover that some of these things like, function like get here, which is pretty unassuming. It's not as dramatic as like breach or something like that. But when you play with full limiters or something like that, it's incredibly useful for both for damage output and also for like kind of for popping the shields on the cells and things of that nature. So the your loadout, what's a good loadout really depends on how many limiters you're playing with, kind of what level the kind of experience you're even going for.
Yeah, I mean, right now, one of the things we're running into, because we are playing with limiters, is we don't have really great ways to collect cells and break their shields when we are recovering from using turn.
So if I picked like ping on jaunt or something.
Yeah, or if we had some way to like you had some way to pop the shields or anything while you're recovering, it helps a lot.
I think I'm gonna put a little more thought. I'm doing this still kind of thoughtlessly right now, but it's sort of like tough enough at the moment to where, oh cool, we got super user. So she has a cool she goes
and the cool thing about the super user movement too that I forgot is that her power just eats the cells.
Yeah, it just disintegrates them.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about
I think some of that came from it's like really the base damage is really high, but the way it scaled it like fell off a lot. So I think it was something that you added in part so that it always had value, kind of even in the late game where that base like 500 damage wasn't even that great anymore.
Yeah, because you could start to stack void and all cull and all these other things, and you're getting.
How about we get out of here?
This is the goodbye to
From
Amelia
Amelia.
Garber, her side story, and kind of the side story of what's happening to Cloudbank. Thank you for your response. It's the last thing that. No, well, we'll still have the bridge to Fairview, so the OVC terminals are still.
They're still here.
Still operational, but the people are mostly no more.
So, Keymaker asks, how do you guys feel about giving back to the game development community? Certainly, we appreciate everything the community has given us and enabled for us. So, it's important to us where we can to share what we know. There are a couple of talks out there that we've done. Some which are freely available, including a really long one we did recently with the business of video.
Is that out yet?
I thought so.
I think it might. Yeah.
Yeah, they were promoting it. I think it exists.
Okay.
If it's not out now, it should have come out at some point. But a talk we gave about our experience putting together Bastion and Transistor and Pyre, and so it's important to us that if there are game creators out there who think there's something to be learned from our experience, that they have access to some of that information.
Yeah.
One of the things, I think there was a question earlier when I destroyed chat accidentally about the virus, not the virus, what do we call the little plants?
Well, we did.
Process,
there isn't like a player-facing term for them, but
Okay,
they are like the little kind of the virus, the
virus
process plants.
Yeah, process plants. So those things, it's actually interesting. So they are a natural extension of what you might imagine would be happening when the process takes over parts of Cloudbank, but also they were a little bit of this is a good example of Bastion's subtle influence on this game, which is one of the things I think that felt really good about Bastion was just walking around the game world, having the tiles in the world come up as you go. It just meant movement and locomotion was kind of interesting, even when you were just going to a dead end or something like that. And when you're walking around like a city, the world doesn't necessarily like come up around you in interesting and exciting ways. So one of the things that was kind of important to us was to have some aspect of the world that was reactive when you moved, and the processed plants there give you a little bit of that feeling, because you can kind of run through them. Enemies run through them, like the fetch will run through them and destroy them and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, apart from being a cool, interesting detail of the world, it gives you that sense of like, I'm kind of I'm kind of making my way through something, and just moving through it feels like something.
Yeah. Plus the suggestion that these things are quite literally popping up like weeds throughout
Yeah.
the city. It's just kind of there's something unpleasant about them. Ooh, spawn. No, we don't want the spawn range.
Majkin asks, "Hey, is She Shines about something official, or do you want to leave that up to interpretation?" So, I mean, because it's because it's a song, I certainly think we want some interpretive license in there. But it is from Red's discography, right? Like it's a song.
Yeah,
it's
certainly.
a song that she wrote.
And
yeah.
I think there are aspects of it that clearly suggest like it's she's talking about the city, at least in part.
Yeah.
What else she may be talking about is it's a song, and I think to like for us to provide some sort of just like hearing some really overt explanation about what some real life song might be it just diminishes the work if you can like say, oh, it's about this.
It's about this one person. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about this one thing that happened to me. Yeah.
It wouldn't be much of a song if it were as simple as that. It's like that.
And usually even if you're saying that, it's not as simple as that, because you don't
right.
always know where that's coming from, right?
There are subconscious aspects of it as well.
Yeah, in our case, we're answering a question about a character's songwriting process.
Yeah, though there is. Oh, that's cool. Those were the cells being destroyed on generation, which is pretty handy now.
Which you got from what?
That is, it's one of the passives. Let me.
Is that flood? No, flood is giving
it
you
is
a
the
regen.
flood. I think it is.
Flood is giving you regen.
I have to.
Is it
actually like
fetch?
unequip something?
It's fetch on load, I think. No, it's fetch on load.
Oh yeah, the fetch. Yeah, cell destroy chance.
Fetch each.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Maybe not on. Maybe load isn't the most optimal thing to put it on, since load has a low rate of fire, but it's still got the job done there. Yeah. So as an interesting aspect of the songs in that I think maybe one of those things that may be frustrating to players who are like in deep on this game is like some aspects of the songs in Transistor seem to predict events to come. So how could they have existed if they had a sense of foreknowledge of events to come, like in Circles? Is this about the encounter with Sybil and things of that nature? And the answer is dot.
Yeah.
Thank you for your engagement.
Yeah.
Those are, we hope you enjoy recursion mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's hopefully just, again, stuff to sink your teeth into as you experience this game.
Mm-hmm.
We chose not to have a super literal form of storytelling in this game,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of the things in the songwriting that can hopefully be cool to think about. You could just enjoy the song on the surface. Ashley has a beautiful voice, and
Should we just keep powering?
You think so? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
All
maybe
right.
we can duck in one last time.
Yeah, in Fairview,
but I think we should.
For now, let's keep moving. We're starting to get affected by the spine of the world. Get a little.
Yeah, but we're deep in.
Yeah, we're deep in. We're gonna
with
get
3,200 people watching us play our second game, Transistor. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be back with wow.
We'll just
I
die.
got
We'll just
annihilated.
die here.
This is a tough fight.
This one is tough. This one, yeah. This is
Hold on.
all the
Where do I-
ones that were the cheerleaders.
Yeah, where do I begin?
Well, you have to pick up those 2 cells. I feel
And
like.
I need to not walk into that, which will get me killed. Picking up the cells
Is
a
hard,
wise choice.
but hard because you don't.
I do. I have the real time ping that can. Oh man.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You're hemmed in,
I am.
and your information is low because of the presence of snapshots.
But I can at least stun them. Buy myself some time.
Some things coming up about our Discord. We do have an official Supergiant Discord. We have a team of people there who can moderate it. It should be a great place to discuss our games and hang out. And thanks for everyone from that Discord who's joining us
Yeah.
here on Steam and asking
Yeah,
us
it's something
questions.
we launched just recently. We're gonna kind of as we grow the, we're just kind of making sure we can scale it up
Yeah.
properly and so on. But for folks tuning in to a chat like this, you may well be interested in something like our Discord channel. I think it's probably just searchable.
Yeah.
I'm freaking doomed.
You are getting the effects of the twin cell limiters because you're getting more snapshots than you started with.
Yes.
So,
which is not
yeah,
ideal.
if we expire here, we can always turn the limiters off
Yeah.
for this section of the game because when you get into Fairview and you've got limiters on, that is gnarly.
Yeah. The man will
Yes.
will.
One of the great.
The man is coming up pretty soon, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
Okay, we could do this. I believe in.
There's one more after this, right? At least. There's actually two more, I think.
So I have real-time ping, so I can just hose him down. I just need to make sure that these things don't come back. Oof. Yeah, and these so get this this function is really powerful. It like the farther you are from something, the more damage it does, which is not very compatible with the fact that I can't see anything here. So that puts me in a tough spot. But I'm getting somewhere. The cheerleaders are good to eliminate, and I actually have a clear shot here. No, he's blocked.
What you can do is just you could also just move and then just blow them up, and then you can go back and turn.
The real-time ping is being pretty effective.
That was all gets.
Yeah, that was all gets. That was not good. Oh God. Oh, they even lead their targets, so.
And his cell is.
And now he is protected. Oh, and I got disrupted.
You're down to just real-time ping. Ping,
Yeah.
carry us.
Okay. This is
Dear
really
Lord
not
is
good.
asking, what's the relationship between Grant and Asher Kendall? If you're at liberty to say, are they related? Are they friends? Is it romantic? All these questions.
I think it's obvious, and I don't think it needs to be talked about.
Okay.
It's like it's just. Yeah, it's like one of those. I think it's as obvious as the game makes it. They're like if they're just friends who chose to have the same last name. It's like or I'll make it. It's like it's one of those. I don't want to. Yeah, I shouldn't sort of. I'm trying to concentrate on not dying here. Yeah,
While answering lower questions, yeah.
Yeah, they like we felt we were quite direct about their relationship without sort of cheapening it to go that. So I think I don't know that. I don't think that that's an aspect of the game that is like requires a ton of debate. The part where they share a surname, so they're clearly in a same-sex relationship. If that wasn't clear, and they cared a lot about each other. As you could be whatever you want to be in Cloud Bank. That's like not going to be what anybody thinks is important about you one way or another. I think that's why I'm cagey about talking about it, because it's like just how people are.
Yeah, well, it requires it's an interesting. It's a good question, dear Lord. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like I think people on many of the relationships in the game, they have. Oh,
wow.
No, we ate it. They have
we
questions.
get to see the
They have
screen.
questions about like the direct. We should retry without numbers. You know, what is the precise relationship between Red and the voice and the transistor and these kinds of things, and it's interesting because I think it's in world and in theme that you don't you don't always get it clean.
Yeah,
but hopefully that information is there if you.
Yeah,
reach for it.
we wanted to create the experience of like discover. I think it's how you discover people's relationships in real life that they don't. Not everyone is introduced as here's my wife and here's my boyfriend or whatever. You just like see how characters interact with each other and talk about each other and piece things. It's fun in real life to piece those things together. It's like, oh, they have the same last name, they're married or whatever, or like they, oh, I thought they were a couple, but they're actually just brother and sister. They're like they have a really close relationship, but they're siblings. So part of it was just, did I retry without limiters?
Yeah.
This looks like.
I think you did.
they're
I don't
just
know.
still
Did you hit
They're
the right
just
button?
leveled up. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, so it was mostly, I think, to whatever extent
Ping it.
their relationship was in any way not obvious. It's because that's like not the point of the story, and it's also just to sort of pick up on the details at your own pace, which is true throughout many aspects of this story. Yeah, okay, I've got this more figured out now. Yeah, my narrative defenses are down now. Time to ask all the salient questions and get all the direct answers that I've been unwilling to give for many
Chat
years.
is bragging about how they saw the ultra rare death screen
Yeah.
and they barely ever see it. But
That's
apparently,
That's
this is
part of
good.
the-
Yeah, that's part of the joy.
Yeah, well, we can take advantage of get now. You can how much?
Yeah.
80 damage. It's decent.
You might.
This is the kind of fun like predictive stuff you could do. So get is gonna suck him in, and then crash should hit him. Yeah, easier without limiters.
Yeah, it is, and hopefully
Oh.
we still lost a function.
Yeah.
So-
Still no walk in the park.
We're being asked what was the decision to go forward between Bastion and Transistor, and was it a team decision? Yeah, so it was. We're Supergiant is owned by the people who work here, so we have no master besides ourselves, and so when we make a decision to move forward or not on any idea, whether it's a new game concept or is there a different version of the game we want to pursue, or do we want to try and make the team bigger, or these kinds of things. It's a group of us here who talk about it and figure it out, and that is no different for the projects we're trying to pursue and the ideas we're trying to pursue. The stuff we do here is highly collaborative, whether it's the direction of the company, the direction of the game, or making the thing itself.
Will I ever see you again?
It's another heartfelt Logan Cunningham performance in this particular.
Yeah, this is a nice moment, not because of how amazing it is to break these process walls, but I think it very clearly indicates the way the music affects the process walls.
Yeah, it does.
Because you can see the kind of
Yeah.
the way that it beats in rhythm, and the process wall reacts to it. We got
Oh. Nice try, Spine Tail.
we have a question. Oh, so someone is just posting the link to the Discord. Yeah, it's discord.tg/supergiant if you want to join the chat there. So in CloudBank, since you can be